So much rest.
Yeah. Christina, where's baby X? Where's the X man? Christina might be driving. Oh no, she's gone.
My guess is she's in her car.
Yeah. Hi, Gina. Miss Span, Charlotte. Hey, Aaron.
Hello. Good to see everybody.
Yes, it is. There's Christina. She's back. Oh, hey, Christina.
People are flipping around and it looked like Christina's face just showed up where Gina was. That was confusing for a minute there.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hi. Wait a minute. Where's the other board member that lives in your house? Where is he? Oh, she's frozen.
I think she's at her grandmother's house. Although I was just on the phone with her, and Xavier has a lot to say about pretty much everything. He has a lot to say.
He was just on camera putting his tongue out.
Oh,
you missed it.
We couldn't see him. You froze.
Xavier, come here. Come here. Come here. Come say hi.
Are you saying come here like he's moving by himself?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like, wait a second. Are we at the stage where he's like, oh.
Yeah. He's running. He's not like stable anymore.
What do you mean running? Because you crawl first. Did he already do that?
He crawled for like 2 weeks and then he started running.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Xavier.
I don't like it.
He's like, come here.
Oh, you don't come. Okay, you coming back?
No.
You coming back? Go see grandma. Grandma's
I cannot even believe it. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know when that happened.
Happened. He was literally running at his first birthday party.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So Tuesdays we try to see my grandmother on Tuesdays.
Okay.
So that's our Tuesday activity. We can get worn out before bed.
Exactly. Hey, Roxana. I see you down there. And who's on the 407 number?
Hi, everyone. This is Roxana. The 407 is not me.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Roxana.
Hi,
we see you. And I see
this
Sterling.
Is Jen Ubiera. I'm the one on the phone.
Oh,
Hi,
perfect.
Jen.
Great. Hi, Jen.
Hi. I'm still on my transit home, so I should get home in about half an hour.
Great. That's great. Thanks for joining by phone. So we have 7 people, so I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go. Convene the meeting, right? So welcome to everybody. Let's recite the mission. Do you have your board book open, everybody? Here we go. The mission of Paul is to educate our students and to develop in them the capacity to be responsible citizens, independent thinkers, and leaders. Our folks are going to be leading us out of this mess that all of the adults have gotten us in. Okay, enough editorializing. Let's go into our first agenda item, which is over to you. Christina has a new parent trustee to tell us about.
All right, so we have a new parent trustee on deck pending tonight's vote. Thank you, Dr. Wright and your team for vetting her. She is absolutely amazing. We met with her last week. Her name is, and I'm gonna pull up her on my end. Her name is Andrea Deadweiler. She currently has a 10th grade scholar at Paul. Please don't hit your head. She is, are you okay? Yes. She is currently the Assistant Inspector General for Audits at the Small Business Administration. She has an incredible amount of experience in government and specifically in the Inspector General community. She is not just a strong candidate as a parent trustee, but she is a super strong candidate for the finance committee based on her background and experience. Super passionate. She has some really, really great ideas in order to strengthen the parent voice on the board. So at this time, I am going to move for us to accept Andrea Detweiler as our newest parent trustee.
All right.
Are there any seconds? Sorry, I'm being efficient because the kid's going to hit his head again at any moment.
Yeah.
Did anyone else meet with her? Did Aaron and Amber meet with her?
No, I did apprise both of them of her background and talk to both of them about her. One of the issues with meeting with her is this week is her anniversary week, and she is unfortunately in California celebrating her anniversary with her husband. Their anniversary is actually today. She definitely offered to be on the call, even if it was for a couple of minutes, but I told her family first, and we can definitely meet her in October. But the way that the vetting process works is the school community and the school leadership vets the parents first and then brings them to us. So she was, I believe there was another parent that had been vetted previously, and then it was determined that she was not the right fit for the board at this time. But Ms. Detweiler came up, and I think she's a fantastic fit.
So did I get a second on that?
Yep, I'll second.
Thank you, Gina. All right, so we need to vote. And so we'll start with, I'll vote yes. And Kemba?
Yes.
Jeff? I think Jeff's frozen. Oh, or muted.
Yes.
Thank you, Gina.
Yes.
Roxana?
Yes.
Sterling?
You okay?
Yes.
Jen?
I know, but you're fine.
Yes.
All right, very
I got to
good.
go.
Thank you. And so Christina, thank you so much for that process, and thank you to the school leadership. And we will look forward to meeting her in October, and you'll convey the good news to her. And we'll work on finding her, working on bringing her on board, on giving her a good onboarding process. So that's terrific. Thank you. All right, so now we are going to go to the approval of the minutes. So we need to have a motion to approve the August minutes, please.
So moved.
I think that was Roxana, was that right? And then Jeff seconding it? Is that okay,
Yes.
Jeff? Yeah,
Second,
thank you.
sure.
Okay, and so I'll vote yes. And Kemba, don't mute yet, Kemba.
Yes.
And then Jeff, you've just seconded, so I'm assuming you're, and Gina?
Yep.
Christina?
Yes.
Roxana moved, so I'm assuming that's a yes. And Sterling?
Yes.
And Jen?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Okay, and over to Dr. Wright for our CEO's report.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Can you believe it? It is September 2021. Woo! Really excited about that. So we are a full over a month now that our students have been back, and they are back. I sent a text message to the executive team the other day, and I said, I just could not imagine ever having to go back into that quarantine space because, you know, over the last 18 months, it is really kind of settled in how important it is to be in the space and environment, both with our staff and with our students. So we're all here at about 735 children. We fluctuate between 733, 735. Span is giving me the thumbs up, which is really great. And we're super excited because that's between 13 and 15 students. We have to wait until next week when we close out, you know, and take the snapshot of enrollment. But let's just celebrate really quickly because we have definitely met our budgeted enrollment number of 720.
Great job, Dr. Wright.
Yeah. Great job. The executive team and our marketing team, the school leaders, it's just been awesome. We made that. But I'll take some of that to Sterling. We're just happy that we made that number super important because it is a year, truly a year unlike any other. And so, as we have brought our students back, we are definitely feeling and preparing for and addressing all of the different I would say kind of, concerns that people have raised over the last 18 months about what would the state of education be for our students when they return. What I can say is that, a big part of the state of education is that our children are also really, really happy to be back. And we also made very good decisions this year in terms of investing some of that additional money and making sure that we were staffed up relative to our culture teams, relative to our counseling and our social worker staff. And we also have a good number of partnerships that we forged over the last 18 months that are here to offer additional social emotional supports for our students. All of those things are very, very necessary as we reacclimate our students into school. And so with that, I'm going to give a couple of quick updates. I already shared with you where we are with enrollment. We closed the window on enrollment next week, I think on Tuesday. So we're feeling really happy about that. The other piece is that we did share the executive dashboard. I do want to mention that one of the notes that I have actually right here on my computer is to ask them to start cutting our current data against 2019-2020 data. Because like when we look at things like the attendance rates and suspension rates, understanding that for 2021, our children were in virtual land the entire year. And so attendance rates are going to look different because children were at home and logging in was a different act than actually coming to school. So just know for this first dashboard that we shared in the board book, that data is compared to full virtual data. We will, for the next month, have that data cut against our numbers from 2019 and 2020. And then at some point in time, we may need to reach even further back so that the numbers are more connected to when our children were in school for a full year. Okay.
Good.
Jeff, you wanted to add something or say something?
I just said that's good.
Yeah. Definitely. We were reviewing the data this week and just realized that it's just not the right comparison. So we're going to reach back 1 year for up to a certain period of time. And then we may have to reach back 2 years because, as you all know, we went into full-blown quarantine in March of 2020. So transitioning really quickly into the 5th grade expansion, I just want to say to the board again, thank you all for authorizing, the deep dive into doing the research and gathering the data to figure out whether or not this was going to be a good decision for us as an organization. Will and I were checking in today, kind of talking about some of the early findings relative to big ticket decisions that we're going to have to make in order to make this larger decision to expand to the 5th grade. And one of those things was just thinking about like the landscape in terms of the availability of 5th grade students. All of those data points are data points that we didn't necessarily have access to, but our consultants do. And so really excited about the October SBC meeting, which will be a 2-hour-long meeting. It's on the calendars of those individuals who are part of the SPC committee. So it's a really important meeting because we're going to dig deeply into what their findings are, so then we can be prepared to do an abridged version of that presentation to the full board the next day. But at this point, all interviews are complete. We've decided to send out a 2-question parent survey just to kind of see what parents' thoughts and ideas are about the expansion. The draft report will actually be ready, and Will and I, along with the executive team of the school, will do a deep dive into that report to help prepare for the presentation. And then again, I already shared that the SPC will be prepared to meet to talk about that in October. Jeff, when you and I meet to talk about the SPC agenda, I think that we should have probably about 90 minutes for the deep dive into those findings. But we definitely have data to share because we have completed our first administration of the map, and we have that data that we've done some analysis on. And there are a couple of other data points that we need to raise to the SBC. So Manya's keeping an ongoing kind of tab of notes. We want to talk about graduation rates for the upcoming year in the map data, and then current grade data. We'll share all those things for the next SBC meeting.
Good.
Tracy, what are the 2 questions you're asking the parents on this survey?
Oh, I cannot remember those. You remember, Manya?
One second. Just give me 1 second. I can pull them up directly.
Yeah.
And these are parents of students at the school, right?
That's right.
Yeah, just obvious.
That October meeting is going to be really an important one, both the SPC, as Tracy's already said, and then our October board meeting. And while you're looking for those parent surveys, I'll announce something I was going to say at the end. In order to allow, well, for a couple reasons, we're going to move our November board meeting. One reason is because it currently falls on the Thanksgiving week when school is closed, so we have to move it anyway. We're going to move it up to November 9th. And that will allow us to vote on this 5th grade issue in enough time so that if the decision is positive that we are going to move ahead with it, then we need to, that gives the school leadership time to prepare for EdFest. So November 9th, and Manya will be changing that invite on your calendar. If she hasn't already, I haven't looked, but that'll be shifting. So
And Erin, on the 8th, the SPC and the executive committee are going to meet. Is that
that's
right?
right. And that's a really good point, Jeff. The other one is for the people in those 2 committees. We're going to flip the order of that so that SPC can make their recommendation to the executive committee, and then the executive committee can make a recommendation to the board for the next night for their vote. So the SPC will meet at 5 and the executive committee will meet at 6 on the 8th. That's Monday, November 8th, and then board meeting Tuesday, November 9th. So Will, did you have a chance? Were you able to find that?
Yep. So the questions that we've sent out to our families are as follows. The first question is, think back to when your student was in 4th grade. If Paul had offered a 5th grade option at the time, would your family have considered joining our school for 5th grade? Second question is, if you're advising Paul leadership about what they should do to successfully add a 5th grade to our school community, what would you tell them? And lastly, is there anything else you'd like the Paul leadership to know about adding a 5th grade?
Yeah. The goal was to keep it super short and super succinct so that we can encourage parents to respond.
So does it explain what's under consideration too? I mean, it's kind of implied in the questions, but.
No, it's
Yes.
implied. Go on, Will.
Yeah. So the information they get before they can kind of see those questions, it says we've partnered with 2 local organizations to help our leadership understand the needs of our families, specifically around the question of extending our community to include 5th grade. We'd be grateful for your input so that your voices are included in our conversations. Participation is voluntary and anonymous. Yada yada yada.
So to the first question, are the possible answers yes or no? Or is
Yes,
it...
no, not sure, and other, like an option to kind of clarify your reflections.
Yeah, okay. And
so these surveys are designed to get quantity over quality. You know, like we wanted to. We've struggled to get feedback from things that our families find like that are a lower priority. So we wanted to make sure we had some reactions. If the information turns out to be surprising in one way or the other, then having access to just the quick yeses and nos, if there's a large number of something that we would not expect, then it gives us something, you know, that's would become rationale for like a deeper dive.
The second question is, I don't remember it exactly, but it didn't sound like it had a yes or no answer.
Correct. It's a short answer, right? It is a Google. So one question is just click yes or no, not sure or other, and the other one is a quick short answer. Could be as long as you wanted to, depending on your engagement.
Okay. So this is a Survey Monkey kind of a thing?
I think it's actually a Google form, but functionally, yes.
Something like that,
Yeah.
okay.
That parents can complete on their phone. Like usually whenever we send out surveys, it's in this kind of format.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions about that? Hey, little Hendrix. Sorry. Come from the background. Hey, babe. Hi, we have 2 honorary board members. Any other questions? Okay. So, yeah, we look forward to the deeper report, really anticipating that draft report this week. I'm sorry, next week. And again, that big meeting will be the day before the board meeting towards the end of October. The last piece
Wait,
that
sorry, Tracy, can I ask you one more thing about the 5th grade before you leave that? And that is to say, so for that October board meeting, everybody needs to come prepared to listen closely, ask hard questions, because we're going to have a big decision to make in November, and we need to make sure everybody is clear. And so whatever you need to do to steel yourself to ask Dr. Wright or anybody else on Deliverad or whoever, the hard questions, the uncomfortable questions, if they end up being uncomfortable, the challenging questions, we can be civil and polite about it, but it's important that we do this right. It's important that everybody feel comfortable with it and that we really get the information we need so that we can make a smart decision. So we don't want to have we want to have the real conversation in the meeting. We in schools, we joke that what you don't want to have is the faculty meeting where everybody leaves and has the real meeting in the parking lot, right? So we want to have the real meeting in the meeting and not in the parking lot, or not by text outside of the meeting or whatever. So everybody get ready. You got a whole month notice to steel yourself for being able to really engage on this issue.
So Erin, or Tracy, is it possible to get the report so we can read the report ahead of it being presented?
We will absolutely make that request, Jeff. I was thinking about that as Erin said it. We'll absolutely make that request. Definitely for the SBC, and going to try to push for that for the board as well, but most definitely for the SBC.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll in the meeting today, I think they understand that expectation, Jeff. You can expect it a couple of days beforehand, not morning of. The board, I don't know if Bundy will send out the board book. When you send out, it'll be included there, the portions that need to make it there, but some of that may get tweaked or modified from Monday. So it'll be just a bit before the board meeting on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and we'll have time because our board meeting then is a time for us to absorb information, ask questions, get clear on things, and then our decision isn't until the 9th. So we do have time to think and process.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. The last thing I just wanted to make you all aware of, you probably have already heard about this about a week and a half ago, got an early morning call from the PCSB that Mayor Bowser was going to have an 11:30 a.m. press conference. I can't remember if that was that last week? And it's last week on Monday. And so at the press conference, Mayor Bowser announced that the mandate for all school employees, and that's parochial, private, charter, and DC public schools, that all staff members were mandated to be vaccinated, that the option that once existed during the summer for staff members who were not vaccinated to submit a weekly test to show that they were not, they were COVID negative, that option was going away, and that the only individuals that would still be granted any type of exemption from being vaccinated were those with the religious or the medical form completed and vetted. So for our staff, that equals approximately 22 staff members, most of whom are not classroom teachers. So that's good. And HR is in the process of working with those 22 staff members to, make sure that everyone's clear about what their next steps are going to be. They have to be fully vaccinated, I should say, by November the 1st. That directive extends not just to staff members, but it also extends to our student athletes who are 12 years of age or up. In order for them to participate in sports with our organization, they now have to be fully vaccinated by the November 1st deadline. That is really good because there were schools that were pulling out of sporting events with schools who did not have that vaccination mandate in place for their student athletes. So Will, who runs Point on our COVID matters for the organization, we're looking to see if there are additional partnerships, although DC has done a really good job of making sure there are vaccination sites everywhere that are easily accessible by all. We are also looking to see whether or not we want to partner so that we can do some on-site vaccine distribution, just so that our athletes get what they need as soon as possible.
That means
So-
if they're going to be fully vaccinated by November 1st, it means they have to get their first shot like ASAP.
Correct.
unless they're getting Johnson & Johnson, which is you're fully vaccinated with one shot, right?
Correct. That's right.
Yeah.
And most will probably go for the vaccine that has been fully FDA approved specifically for those for
Pfizer.
children. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And that's Pfizer. So and again, like there are tons of partnerships, tons of sites. And if we can bring that directly to the school, then we will absolutely do that. And so the last thing I just wanted, any questions about that in terms of the staff mandate? Okay. The last thing is that, of course, like most organizations, all organizations, actually, let me be clear, we too have had, since we've come back, a couple of positive cases of COVID in the organization. I feel really proud about how we've been able to handle those positive cases. And I'm just going to ask Will to give a very high level of the number of positive cases to date and just give a very brief overview of our process. And then Ms. Spann, I'm putting Ms. Spann on the spot because I didn't tell her this. If you would give a very brief overview about how teachers are still servicing students relative to the academic piece when a child is positive with COVID or has to be quarantined because they were a close contact of a student who was positive.
Yeah.
Will?
Did you say Will or me, Dr. Wright?
I'm going to start with Will and then go to you.
Okay.
He's just going to talk about the process for contact tracing. And then I was going to punt to you to talk about how we still service their academic needs.
You get to think, since you put you on the spot while I share my updates, Ms. Span. Not that you need any thinking time because you're so quick on your feet. Overall, we're super fortunate and grateful for our COVID experiences. We have had, as of earlier this afternoon, only 6 cases of COVID that were in the building. Our routines are helping stop cases get into the building. We have a number of families who report COVID, and based on our routines, we catch them before they make it into the building. And so while we've had a handful of other cases where we offer some long-term virtual learning experiences that I think Span's going to speak to, those kids are not kids making it into the building. And so we're grateful for that. The current, as of right this second, we only have 10 children on quarantine, which is also a good number. The DC Health's guidelines for identifying students who are considered close contacts is very rigorous. And so we only have 10 kids right now that are currently at home on quarantine. Over the course of the school year, checking my numbers, we've had 35 children that have had to quarantine for any length of time. So again, statistically, those numbers are far lower than our baseline comparison, which of course is DC PS. And so the other piece of information that's super important to note here, outside of the current quarantine of those 10 children that are currently experiencing the quarantine right now, meaning we don't know the outcomes of how the quarantine will end, none of the other positive cases that were definitively in the building or the kids that were then having to quarantine, or the kids that were not considered close contact and therefore did not need to quarantine, but were in the same room as another child with COVID. None of those children have tested positive or reported COVID symptoms within the time frame of their potential exposure. So that speaks to the reality that our internal things, understanding and knowing that regardless of how we slice it, we know COVID's going to be in our building at some point, that the systems around sanitization, mask usage, social distancing, and ventilation, and so on and so, and the room sanitation are effective and working on each day in these instances that occur. So we're very grateful for that. In terms of process, high level overview, a student reports that they have a positive case. We immediately communicate with the staff of that they encountered, whether or not they were a COVID close contact, and most of whom are vaccinated, so therefore they need to self-monitor but do not need to quarantine. And then we reach out in person directly to each child that is identified as a close contact. The children, though they're not identified as close contacts, we reach out to them too. So if you had a class with so-and-so, you get communication that you are not identified as a close contact, but you were in a room with someone that had COVID, and so you should self-monitor. We just, while that's not a part of the requirement for DC Health, we felt like it was an important piece of being transparent with families that our systems should be keeping you safe, but we wanted you to know so you can make decisions for yourself and your child. So those communication processes are seem to be working. We get some that leads to most days a couple of back and forth questions with some parents that want more information, but we've got a team that's very eager and willing to get that information to them upon their request. So it's complicated and nuanced each time, and but our systems are working and keeping our kids safe to the extent that to the things that are in our power.
Thanks, Mr. Henderson. Span?
Yeah. And so once Mr. Henderson and his team have made the calls using the school leaders and identified those students and teachers sometimes who need to be quarantined, that information, of course, is given directly to the principals and the academy directors. The principals and academy directors then communicate that information to our grade level leads, because usually it's not beyond the scope of a grade level that we have to have phone calls about a particular exposure of a group of scholars. The grade level leads, let's say it's approximately 10 scholars who were determined to be in close contact, and so we've deemed that they must quarantine, then send out communication to their fellow grade level teachers, informing them of A, the students who need to be quarantined, B, ensuring that students have access to our Google Classrooms, which students already have access to anyway as a part of our normal daily instruction. We started that last year and intentionally continued it this year just because it's a good sound warehouse to support artifacts and work products for students. And it allows us to seamlessly go back and forth between if a student is in person or if a student is accessing learning remotely. And so the grade level lead is responsible for communicating the students who will be accessing the class virtually, for making sure that everyone has access to our Google Classroom links, which the students can see all the work products, and then giving the teachers some time and support with getting ready for a hybrid lesson. And what a hybrid lesson means is that for that lesson, you're going to be teaching with approximately 2/3 of the students in front of you and maybe 5 to 6 accessing you through our swivel technology, in which students can see the scope of the classroom. They can see the teacher and see the direct instruction that's going on while they're accessing the classroom through the Google Classroom link and documentation. When it comes to a teacher who needs to be quarantined, we actually have a teacher now who has been teaching virtually. So what happens with the teachers is they actually operate like what they did last year when we were in the pandemic. From their house, they're teaching the lesson via Zoom to the students. The students in the classrooms are on their Chromebooks accessing a direct teacher-led live instruction. And then we have another adult in the classroom. It could be another teacher from the grade level. It could be a substitute teacher to ensure and monitor the safety of the students and to ensure they're following along appropriately. That second adult in the classroom is not teaching. They are there for monitoring and supervision, while the classroom content-based teacher facilitates the live teacher-led instruction. So it's a pretty nuanced, multi-layered system. Very proud of the leaders and the school teachers for really kind of stepping into this unknown territory and learning every day and becoming really skilled at this fluidity of going in and out of in-person to hybrid, to teacher virtual, teacher in person, et cetera.
And just to add to that, it's our school-based staff, our school leaders, and I have to say the executive team, Henderson, Span, Reagan, and Merkerson, and Manya, who have really worked very hard to very quickly. All of these policies and procedures had to be developed in process, right? Like you can kind of try to forecast, but you don't really know. And I feel so blessed and fortunate as an organization that we bought a lot of things last school year to prepare for a hybrid situation. So all of our classrooms have these huge, like 55, 60-inch televisions. All of our teachers have swivel technology because we bought all these cameras and things thinking that last year in the summertime that we were going to be kind of this in this A-day, B-day place of being hybrid. Well, we weren't. We were virtual for the full year. But when our students finally came back, we were already equipped, already knew what development to do. The part that has been very interesting is that along the way, we've had to learn, how to make sure that notifications happen quickly. We had to learn how to, make decisions about how many days is a child on quarantine before they can access the Google Classroom. What student orientation looked like was different for our children because we recognized that we had to acclimate them to all of these web-based platforms. We're one-to-one as an organization. We're learning a whole lot about what that means to have children carrying computers around all day. So it's been very interesting. But it has jettisoned us into now. I think schools were very antiquated for a long time and very traditional, but we are not antiquated, we are not traditional because we have to make sure that at any point in time that if our children ever did have to go into quarantine or that we went into a full-fledged shutdown, that our children from day one would still be able to access instruction. And so I feel comfortable saying that we're equipped to do that at this point. Okay. Any questions about that?
I don't necessarily have a question, and I don't even necessarily need to know the details of this, but wow, the logistics of that notification process is mind-boggling. What you're just describing in terms of figuring out who you notify and what the messages are and the scale of what you're doing. That's impressive. The teaching is also like mind-boggling. All of it, what you're doing it's just astonishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's a lot of steps and a lot of grace, right? Like figuring out along the way what works and what's not working, and then going in and doing some of the recreation all along the way. And then the last thing I'll say is that this period of time has also been great for fostering community across charter LEAs. We have one charter LEA who created a ridiculously detailed playbook and shared it with all of the charters. And so, even some of our notifications, because they wrote sample notifications for a ton of scenarios, it has been great for streamlining the 66 charter LEAs across the city. So even when we do our notifications, we're all pulling kind of from the same type of playbook. So we'll have some massage here and there, but by and large, we're all saying the same thing the same way. And so it's been really, really wonderful to have those types of resources and community. Yeah. And hey, Pam.
Hello.
And that's it for my report.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments on the CEO's report before we move on to the treasurer's report? Okay, Will, over to you.
All right. We actually have already kind of hit my highlights. So we're starting a new routine with our finance committee meeting. And so this is kind of our off week or month on that front. I think this is going to give us some great opportunities for some longer term planning. The most important cat that's already out of the bag is that we're looking great on the enrollment front. The enrollment team, which Charlotte heads up in most ways, has done a great job. As the finance committee is well aware of, we've been talking about this for months. The balances of where we landed were a little bit different from what we expected. But at the end of the day, our 7th, 8th, 10th, 11th, and 12th were within plus or minus 4 children what we planned to budget for. So those grade levels are almost spot on. Our 9th and 6th grade are a very different story. Our 9th grade is huge, and which is presents it's both its challenges and its opportunities, and we're excited about that. And we noted this early on and planned accordingly. Our 6th grade is quite small, and we're ending around 81 children, and so it's looking like. And so we've again planned accordingly there. I think we'll do some long-term planning about what that will be like going forward. So long story short, assuming we get to hold on to these kids that we're working with right now, we are going to end enrollment season with about 17 children above our budgeted amount and big picture. So that's very encouraging news. And, I think just to further tout the efforts of our team, the reality is that up until really this moment, that it was uncertain because we were not comparing apples to apples this year. And really we weren't comparing apples to apples last year. So we're really like moved from apples to oranges to bananas to grapes. Like we're a good few steps about what like any kind of meaningful comparisons are, which we're very unfamiliar with. We're really pre-COVID, we had a very clear routine. We were nailing our enrollments, sometimes a little bit too close to spot on. And so, overall, we're very encouraged and pleased with our outcomes, and noted the 2 biggest variances, 6th and 9th, quite early in the game, and made accommodations appropriately. So big picture, connecting to the treasurer's report, financially, we're in a great position. We are managing and thoughtfully planning for the grants and the recovery funds that we are eligible for over the coming years, and are investing a lot of time in making sure that recovery experience and investment is meaningful and impactful. So we are in a great place this month and this year, this season.
Wonderful. Thank you. Questions? Comments? Suggestions? Ideas? All right. I just have to remind everybody that if you were negligent, like I was, and forgot after the August meeting to send in your conflict of interest form, do it tonight, please. Get it in. It's in on our board book link. It is really important. We have to collect those. It's a matter of compliance. It's a simple form to fill out. If you have any questions about it, we'll just take a moment and Will can answer your questions. Maybe take a moment, make sure you can find it.
Aaron, is that true for those of us who joined within the last 6 months? I know I had to sign a COI form when I onboarded, however long ago it was now.
Oh, that's a really good question. Will, how often do they need to sign that?
We just need the conflict of interest once per year. So if that was a part of your onboarding and Ms. Bundy, you have that, then that is sufficient. One every essentially budget cycle.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions about the conflict of interest? All right. You have the executive and school performance minutes. I don't think we had the finance. I can't remember now seeing the finance, but we had this executive and school performance in the board book. Any questions that anybody has about any of those or either of those minutes?
And while they're reflecting on their questions, Aaron, this is the routine where we skipped the finance committee meeting intentionally, so there are no minutes for this month.
I thought it would, but I thought we should have the August ones. Because
But those were they're the same as last month's.
okay, all right. So
They're
it's because
they're the same.
okay, got it. All right. So we'll pick that up with our new routine. All right, Kimba, do you have a question, it look like?
The question that I had was, it was about the mayor's mandate. This is kind of backwards thinking. Is there any chance that the mandate itself would impact the trajectory of the school year or at all?
Absolutely, right? Like if there are staff members who make the decision, and just for privacy purposes, I'll refrain from kind of like where the staff members who are not vaccinated are kind of bucketed. And I've already shared that by and large, our teaching staff is, we're in a good place in terms of vaccine, of them being vaccinated. But if for some reason those other staff members, and we only have 22 staff members at this point who are not vaccinated out of about 140 staff members, if they made the decision to not get vaccinated, which at this point we have not heard from any of them with the exception of one that they're going to pursue their exemption documentation, then it could absolutely impact overall operations of the school. We don't anticipate that given what our staff members have shared with us, but it could have an impact. We convened staff, I think last week on either, was it Wednesday? I'm sorry, the weeks are like blurred, but I think we convened, was it Wednesday or Thursday? One of the days last week.
It was Wednesday.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Because it was a normal school day, not an abbreviated one.
No, it was Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday.
I remember the day. It was Tuesday.
It's a blur. But we convened staff, had that transparent conversation with them and told them to share if they have any concerns or anything else with HR. And to date, only one staff member has shared any of those concerns.
Thank you.
Erin, just going back to the conflict of interest, who do we send it to?
That goes to Manya, correct, Manya? Yeah.
Okay, so, all right.
Other questions? Comments? Okay, so just to summarize, very important school performance committee meeting coming up October 25th, Jeff, yeah? Where Deliver Ed is going to be giving the fifth grade report, the in-depth fifth grade report. Very important October 26th board meeting for all of us, where we're going to hear from Deliver Ed, ask our questions, be prepared to really dive in and have a very candid and honest conversation with each other about whether this is the way forward. We then have the school performance committee meeting November 8th at 5 p.m., where they will make a recommendation to the executive committee that will meet at 6 p.m. So flipping school performance and executive committee meetings for that night. The November board meeting is moved to November 9th, moved from Thanksgiving week to November 9th. Tuesday, November 9th, we'll make our decision about the fifth grade. So again, it's an important meeting. Come prepared to vote that night and to have your questions answered in those forums ahead of time, or to have addressed them outside of the board meetings and committee meetings, if that's what needs to happen, to make sure everybody's prepared to vote and feels comfortable making that decision, so that we can be prepared for that vote and the school leadership can get prepared for EdFest if the vote goes in that direction. And then of course we don't have a board meeting in December. That's the meeting, that's the month we skip our board meeting. So that's kind of the what we're doing over the next several months. Any questions, comments, anything about any of that? This is the biggest thing we've done since before I was on the board and we voted for the high school. So this is a big deal, very big deal. All right, then that's everything I have. So I think we should adjourn the meeting and say, have a wonderful rest of your evening.
That's good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a
Thank you, Aaron. Have a good
Bye,
night.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Good night, bye.
Is there an executive session?
I don't have an executive session. Does anybody need to call an executive session? Ask the leadership to step out and give me the meeting? Nope.
I just didn't want to leave prematurely.
No. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Checking. Bye.
Undo